Hilchis Tumas Ochlin Perek Hasiri. Kvar biyarnu sha'ashiva mashkin bilvad heim shemistamen e machshirin. Whereas the only liquids which could be mekabel tuma are only the zayin mashkin, and they are also the only ones that could be machshir and echel to be mekabel tuma. Whereas other liquids are not, marshal fruit juices. They're not an oichel because they're juice, and on the other end, they're not a mashke because they're not from the zayin mashkin. So memela, they're not mekabel tuma. Nachmol kvar biyarnu shav shiva mashkin bilvad hein shemistamen e machshirin. The only liquids that are mekabel tuma are only the zayin mashkin, and they could also be machshir and eichel to be mekabel tuma. V'hashar, any other liquid, is kruyin meipedes, and ve'enu mistam, they're not mekabel tuma, and v'lei machshir, and they're not machshir. V'shiva mashkin shemanino till the same kietzvem. So there's the zayin mashkin, which the yadu the siman is yad shochat dam, yad that's yayin and dvash, and the shochat that's the shemen and the cholov and the tal, and the dam, that's the dam and the mayim. So these are the zayin mashkin. So the tuldas of these zayin mashkin are also kietzvem. Near the Rambam is going to reckon what are the tuldas. Halacha beis. Tuldas hamayim, heim hayotzim min ha'ayin, umin ha'oizen, umin ha'choitem, umin ha'per, and also umei ragli b'nei yodem min gdel min ktanim. So any liquid that comes out of these parts of the body is kol elu hayotzim min ha'odem, that comes out from an odem. These liquids, min ha'ayin, min ha'oizen, min ha'choitem, min ha'per, and also the mei raglayim. So they all have a din of a mashkin, ben shiyotze l'daite shalodam, ben shiyotze shalei l'daite. In other words, it has a din mashkin. Sometimes a mashkin is only when it's yotze l'daite. Certain mashkin are only have a din of mashkin when it's a yotze l'daite. L'mashal b'negei yayin and zaysim, like we learn b'hemshech, that it has a din mashkin only if it's yotze l'daite. Masha'inkim b'negei, these mashkin, this tuldas hamayim that comes out of a person, is ben shiyotze l'daite, ben shiyotze shalei l'daite. Avol mei ragli behema, and also v'hamelech shenimchas, if you have salt that dissolved and became water. So even though salt could really be mitzaref to a mikvah, in Hilchas Mikvahs we're going to learn that salt could be mitzaref to a mikvah, but it doesn't. This melech shenimchas doesn't have a din of mayim harein k'mei pedes and le mistamim v'le machshin. Is nochamal the only mashkin which are mistame and machshin is only the zayin mashkin. There's a musik called the tuldas of the zayin mashkin. The Rambam says, what's the tuldas of mayim? The tuldas of mayim is this that comes min ha'ayim, min ha'ezim, min ha'chetim, min ha'per, and al derech zeh the mei ragli odom. Halacha gimel. Hadam hamoni min ha'mashkin. When you say that dam is mashkin, it means hu hadam hashoises b'shah shchita min ha'behema v'achaya v'efes ha'terim. So when you have a behema teira, behema or chaya v'ef ha'terim, and that dam, not the dam that's miskaleach, that pours out with a force. It's the dam that starts dripping at the end of the shechita. Whereas when the behemoth is already after the shechita, so the behemoth no longer is alive. So then the dam that's dripping, that's the dam which is mistame and also machshin. Nochamal. Hadam hamoni min hamashkin, hu hadam hashoises. Shoises means which drips. V'shas shechita min habehema v'achai v'efes haterim. Aval dam hakiluach, but that dam which is pouring out, any machsher, shadayin chayim, because when that dam is coming out, so it's still alive, and therefore v'arehu dema l'damaka l'dam hakaza, which dam maka, dam hakaza doesn't have a din of mashka, and it's also not machsher, as we learn b'hemshech. Dam hakaza, which is l'refuah, does have a din of mashka, it's a din of tuldas adam. But normally, dam ha'makeh, dam ha'kaza doesn't have a din of mashka. That's din number one. Then the Ram continues hashoichet. Now, v'nitas dam ha'lo'echlin, a person shechts, and then, weißt du, that he shechted one siman, it's not so clear, he shechted one siman, and from that siman started pouring out dam, and obviously that dam is dam ha'kiluach that doesn't have a din of mashka, and then at the end, it was sheises, but it was divided, it was only from one siman. And then v'niskanech hadam in similar siman, and that dam which was sheises you wiped it off from the oichel. It wasn't still on the oichel after you shechted the second siman. Here is a suffix. Over here it's a suffix whether this dam has a din of the dam which is machshir, or it doesn't have a din of the dam of the machshir. Since it's a suffix, is lefichel teilen olav le'echel v'le'seirfen. So in other words, if this tumah which will come as a result of this type of dam, of this Metzias of dam. So let's say if it fell on Truma, so and then the Truma was Makabal Tuma, you don't know really if it was Tummy. Did it have a din that it was Mukshal Kabal Tuma? Mele now it's Tummy, so it's a din of Serfin, or it wasn't really Mukshal Kabal Tuma, so Mele was never became Tummy, so Mele is Ochlin, so therefore it's a suffix, is Le Ochlin V'le Serfin. That's this din. Now the tzir again, what happened? The person shechted one simon. If I say, if a person would shecht one simon and then dam, that's what comes out. That when the Gemara in Chulin also tastes over there, that if a person would shecht one simon and then it would be dam, that would be shoisis on oichel, and then the person would shecht the other simon, and now the dam that was shoisis after the one simon would be still there. If I say it's clear that even though it wasn't shoisis after the two simonim, it was shoisis after one simon, but we go now, it was complete shchita, yeshnu shchita mitchila vatseif. So therefore, it's considered like the dam that was shoisis after the shchita, and memela, so that would definitely be mitami, mamachshir rather. Masha'enkin in a case where it was niskanach bein similar simon, when it was niskanach bein similar simon, so over here it's a suffix. I mean, on one hand, the Rambam Paskins, the Rambam Aruch talks about it, that on one hand, the Rambam Paskins, yeshnu shchita mitchila vatseif. So the chura sof kol sof, since at the end it was a shchita, so it comes out the mafreya at the beginning was also a shchita, so it was dam sheses of the shchita. That's on one hand. But on the other hand, advice is it's still a suffix because since it was niskanach adam being shchita l'shchita, so by the end of the shchita there was no dam there. So I'll call upon. I'm not 100% sure. I don't have clear what's the havon of the suffix, but the metzias of the suffix is alzay that a person shechted a one simon, and from that one simon there was a shoisis, the dam was shoisis, and that dam is no longer there on the oichel after he finished the shchita. So now we go back to Mafreya, we say, was this oichel chukshe? But if lepel, this oichel would have still had the dam on it after he already did the whole shchita, so even though this dam really fell before he did the whole shchita, it was shoisis from one simon, but nevertheless, this dam would definitely have a din that it would be machshir. That's what it comes out halacha. Avonas hadvarim nitzarach bir. That's din number one. So that's what dam is. The dam means the dam that shoisis. And there is a suffix b'negeh the dam which is niskanech ben similar simon. Now tuldas adam. So the Ram says one tuldas adam dam hakaza shalodam shehitzia l'shtia. If they made hakaza on the adam and it was hitzia l'shtia, so then that dam has a din of tuldas adam. That din knows if it was hitzia l'rfuah, so then it doesn't have a din of dam. Like we learn b'sha'inkin if it was hitzia l'shtia, so then it has a din of tuldas adam. Aval mitzil l'rfuah is toer ve'eni machshir. That dam doesn't have a din of dam at all. So there's dam which is shoisis, that's dam. Dam of hakaza which is hitzia l'rfuah is toer ve'eni machshir. If it was dam shehitzia l'shtia, so then it has a din of tuldas adam. V'chein dam shchita b'behema b'chaya o'efes atmeim. Here the Ram is giving a list of those things that are liquid, that are dam but are not machshir. V'chein dam shchita b'behema b'chaya b'efes atmeim, or v'hadam hayetze v'halecha, if a person, let's say, has pus, and that with that pus comes out dam, or v'imhori, if with the tzeya comes out dam, or v'dam hashchin v'ababois, a person has a pimple, v'tamtzis habasar, or that comes out of the flesh, which is also reddish, which is red, but on the other end doesn't have a din dam. Kol elu einu mistamin, they can become tamei v'lei machshin. El harei hen kishar meipeis. Says Nachamol, the only dam that's machshir and mistame is only the dam which is shoises b'shas shkita, and the tuldas adam is dam hakaza shehitzia l'shtia. The dam hasheretz. Now there's another din of dam hasheretz. So we had dam of a behemoth chaya shchuta, of a behemoth teira. Then we had a dam of a behemoth tmeya, which is not dam, and now we have a dam of a sheretz. The dam hasheretz is kipsari. It has a din of a basar which is metame, so it has the din of a basar. It has the din of the basar of a ve'eni machshir, ve'en lo nukliyetzabe. So here we have another dam of a behemoth tmeya. A behemoth tmeya, the basar of a behemoth tmeya is metame, but the dam of a behemoth tmeya is not metame. It doesn't have a din of mashke. It's not metame. It's not machshir. It's garnish. It's meiperis. Masha'inke, the dam of a sheretz. On one hand, it doesn't have a din of mashke. Dam of Asheres doesn't have a din of a mashke. But on the other end, it has a din of the Psara Asheres. Memele, it's Metami. It's Metami of a Ve'eni Machshir. And Ve'en Lo Nukiyitzbe. Halacha Dalet. Now, another one of the mashkin is Cholov. Is Mea Cholov. Mea Cholov is the way, in other words, when milk starts, let's say, becoming cheese, so the thickness of the milk gets separated from the liquidy, so the other is left like a liquidy substance, which is called whey. Is Mea Cholov, Harein Kecholov, has a din of Cholov, and Mela, it's machshir, and it becomes tummy. And the Chalev ha'odom she'eni tzarech li, when a person, there's Cholov of a person that's not really necessary, is Einei Mashke, that doesn't have a din of Mashke. There's Chalev ha'odom, which he doesn't want, he's not interested in that Cholov, is Einei Mashke, lei machshir v'lei mistameh. So it doesn't have a din of Mashke, lahachshir, and it also doesn't have a din of Mashke to become tummy. Lefichach, Chalev ha'zocher, which normally a person is not used to eat, it's not a regular thing, is Chalev that comes out of a zocher, is Einei Mashke. V'chein Chalev behema v'chaya shelotze shalei l'rotzen. Kigen shezov mi'adad. A shechol be'kimisasik. So since it's Cholov, which was shalei l'rotzen, Cholov or shalei l'rotzen, doesn't have a din of Cholov. So Cholov, which comes out shalei l'rotzen from a behema, doesn't have a din of a Cholov. And Cholov that comes out of a zocher also doesn't have a din of a Cholov, because bepashtos, there's no interest in it. Now, Aval Chalev v'isha, that's what it seems from the Rambam. In other words, Be'etzim Chalev HaZocher would have a din of Cholov, weißt du es. In other words, Be'etzim, it seems like Chalev HaZocher could have a din of Cholov. The Rambam is saying it Behemshech, if he's not interested in it, therefore it doesn't have a din of a Cholov. Or you'd be able to think that maybe Chalev HaZocher is B'chalal not Cholov. But nevertheless, when the Rambam comes out not like that, Chalev HaZocher is not a mashke because there's no interest. Aval Chalev HaIsha, Ben Shiotze L'Rotzen, Ben Shiotze Shalei L'Rotzen, is Stami Mashke, because Bepashtus Chalev HaIsha, they're interested in it. Umestami Machshir, Mepnei Shuroi L'Tinik. Now, L'Chure, by Chalev Behema V'chaya Yotze L'Rotzen, is also L'Chure Bepashtus you're interested in it. Weißt du, is Chalev Behema and Chayil, Al Derech HaPoshet. There's some talk about it, but Al Derech HaPoshet, L'Chure Chalev Behema and Chayil is not such a choshev ezach. I mean, it's choshev, normally you want it. But if it's Yotze Shalei L'Rotzen, the Messias of Yotze Shalei L'Rotzen, so it's not so gefährlich if it's Yetzel Ibud. Masha'enken Chalev HaIsha is more choshev. And Memele, for it to go to Ibud is something which a person normally doesn't want. So Memele, even if it's Yotze Shalei L'Rotzen, Bepashtus, you're interested in it. You're interested that this Chalev should go to Tinnik. And Memele, even if it was Yotze Shalei L'Rotzen, it has a din as if it was Yotze L'Rotzen. And therefore, it's Metame and it's also Machshir. Halacha Hey. Now, mashke, in order for mashke to make something muksher lekabel tumah, it has to be that the mashke fell l'rotzen. Whereas if mashke falls on oichel, shalei l'rotzen, so then that mashke is not machshir lekabel tumah. We learned that before. Now here there's a chidush that if you have a mashke which is tummy, the mashke itself is tummy. So even though it fell on the oichel, shalei l'rotzen, but you don't need that the mashke should fall on l'rotzen. Since this mashke is being machshir and metami ke'echad, so even if it fell on the oichel shalei l'rotzen, it's saying machshir and saying metami at the same time. So here the Rambam is going to give us an example of things that are mashkin, and they are machshir umekabel and metami at the same time without being l'rotzen. Halacha hey, hamashkin sheyoytzen lo'isen atmein, so oisen hamashkin ovis atumis. So we learned before that there's the zov v'chaveirov, and there's mashkin that comes out of him, which are in din of an avatuma. So those mashkin which come out of a zov v'chaveirov, which those mashkin have an avatuma, is mitam, is b'lei hechsher. They have a din of mashke. On one hand, they have a din of mashke, and they're tome, they're an avatuma. So memela, they're mitam b'lei hechsher. Shatuma v'hechsher boin kachas. Because since the tuma and the hechsher is boin kachas, so therefore this hechsher doesn't need that it should be l'rotz. That since the hechshers and the tuma are coming la'achas, so you don't need that the hechsher should be l'rotz. Which also has to be understood. Why? But I'll call upon that's the din. When Tuma and Hechsher are boing ke'achas, so then you don't need that the Hechsher is boing berotzen. The Elohim, what are those mashkin, which is avatuma? There's the Zoiv Hazov, the Ziva of the Zov, and the Shichva Zarei, and also Umemi Raglov, and also Urevias Dam Min Hames, the Revias Dam Min Hames, which also has a din of avatuma, of Yaves Hatuma actually, and the Dam Anida. So all these things have a din of an avatuma, and therefore they cause hechsher and tumah at the same time. That's when you get things that have a din of an avatuma. Then the chen. Now the Rambam is going to speak of things that aren't an avatuma, but they also have a din of tumah. Now those mashke that comes out of someone that's tummy ba'avatuma, so the mashke has a din that it touched him. So the mashal of a zov, the dimas ha'ayin of a zov or a zova, or the cholov that comes out of an isha which is tmeya, so that cholov has a din of mashke which touched the tummy. And memela, so it's that mashke is machsher. When that mashke falls on an oichel, so it's sai. So the mashke first of all has a din of tumah. The mashke has a din of is mekabel tumah from the isha, and then that mashke if it falls on an oichel, so it's sai machsher the oichel and sai metami the oichel at the same time. That's what he's saying. So until now he gave examples of an avatuma. The chen dam magifase shel zov chaver, the dam that comes out of a wound, or v'chol of shalisha v'dimasinayim im sh'ar tulas hamayim hayetzimem, is also mitamen k'mashkim tmeim. They're all mitamen k'mashkim tmeim. Shemitamen b'lei kavana. You don't need kavana. No, the hechsher doesn't need rotzen. Shemashkim tmeim mitamen l'rotzen shalei l'rotzen. That's his din. Sai of the mashkim tmeim are an avatuma, like the first cases that he gave, the zeiv azov and the shich vazare, and sai if they are not k'avatuma. Lefichach nida ezova shenotav cholov midader la'aver atanur. So if cholov came out of dader la'aver atanur, so that has a din of mashkin tmeim. It has a din of mashkin tmeim. Is nit mahatanur v'chol mashu b'teiche. The tanur v'chol mashu b'teiche becomes tummy because it becomes tummy from this dam, from this cholov rather, which has a din of tumah. Nida ezova shenotav cholov midader la'aver atanur. Is nit ma'atana b'chol mashu b'teicha. That's what comes out from this halacha. Now, I don't understand kama dvarim in this halacha. First of all, why doesn't the Rambam mention the reikazov? The reikazov is l'chura also, always, reikazov is also tummy. That's what we learned before, reikay. And the Rambam said before that what comes out of the peh is also machshir. So why isn't the Rambam mentioned, first of all, reikazov? And also, shichva zera is the chlechura, something which is metame b'chol adam. The shichva zera of a zov is a special din that is metame b'mago b'masa. Masha'enken, the shichva zera of every person is the adover the tam. It's an avatuma. So l'chura, why? If shichva zera has a din of mashke, because of the mashke the yitzim and adam, so why does this have to be dafka shichva zera of a zov? It might have to mean a shichva zera of a zov or shichva zera of a regular person. L'chura shichva zera of a regular person is also tummy, so I didn't understand that. Also, dam magifose shel zov v'chaverov. So l'chura, we learned before that dam magifose doesn't have a din of mashke. So l'chura, this whole din over here is that when you have mashke, which is tummy, so memele it could be machsher and be metamik achas. But l'chura, dam magifose doesn't have a din of tumah. That's what we learned before. The dam magifose is not. It doesn't have a din of mashke. That was the dam hashesis, the Rambam said in halacha gimel, v'areu dema l'dam makel l'dam hakaza, which doesn't have a din of mashke. So how could this dam magifose shel zov v'chaverov be machsher? L'chura, it could only be machsher if it has a din of mashke. And we're saying that even though it doesn't have a din of, it's not l'rotzen, it's machsher. But l'chura over here, it's not machsher. I don't understand that either. And then also at the end of the halacha, this nida izavish not the cholov midader la'aver atanur. So the chura, that cholov that's not of midader is tummy. It's a tummy. It's a rishon l'tumah. And memela, so it's nitma atanur because a rishon l'tumah is mitame atanur midrabon. The chura has nothing to do with this halacha. This halacha is talking about this din that mashke, which is tummy, could be machsher shalei l'rotzen. We're not being machsher over here. Anida izad not of cholov midader. The cholov is tummy. So memela it's tummy. There's common parts of this halacha that I don't understand. What's this? Why doesn't he mention Reik and why Shichva Zarei dafke by talking about Azov, and how is the Dam Gifase or Shel Zov v'Chaverov? How does it have a din of mashke? And also, what's this din of Nida Yizov not of Cholov Midader? It has nothing to do with this halacha. It's Tamadin that has a din of Rishon L'Tumah, and since it has a din of Rishon L'Tumah, so it's Mitameh the Tanner. Not sure. Halacha Vov. Kvar biyanu shahamashkin hayoytzim mitvul yem einon tmeim. The mashkin, which is yetzim and tful yem and tmeim. So this, even though normally a tful yem has the din of a sheni, and the sheni normally is metamim mashkin to become a rishon, but by tful yem is different. That if it's chulin, so in Mela he's not metami at all, even if it's mashkin. Only if it's truma, so then he can be poiselet, and even if it's mashkin, he's only poiselet. That's what we learned. Lefichach im naflu afilu al kika shel truma eni muksher ad sheyiplu beratzon. The mashke came out of a tvul yem. This mashke who comes out of a tvul yem is dochnat tamei, so therefore he's also not maksher ad sheyiplu beratzon. Kishar mashke not teirim shein maksher not beratzon. So in other words, the mashke that comes out of a tvul yem, but the mashke who comes out of a tamei, since it's tamei, so memela it's maksher shalei beratzon. Mashenkin mashkin that comes out of tvul yem doesn't have a din of tumah, and therefore it's only maksher l'rotz. Halacha zayin hazeya, which is perspiration, or vahalecha asrucha, which is wetness, which is saruach, which comes out of the body. Either it comes out from a wound, or even if it comes out from the mouth. But al kopon we're talking alecha asrucha, or hari'i is tseya, which even if it comes out in a liquid form, or vahamashkin hayotzim ben shmeina chadoshim, someone that was born after 8 months. And there's the mashkin we said before that yetzim and adam, all these mashkin, which has a din of tuldas hamayim, but the mashkin which comes out of ben shmeina chadoshim doesn't have a din of tuldas hamayim. Or v'hashesem eitverio ki yetzeben is afal pishietz in the kiyam, a person, it came out the same place that the re'i comes out, through piyat habas. It came out nikiyam, it came out clean, it came out watery, completely clean. It's not considered mashka, and therefore v'lei mistama v'lei machshir. So even though we spoke before that the mashka hayetzim and adam does have a din of a mashka, has a din of tuldas hamayim, but that's only those mashka that I mentioned before, from the af, from the yoizen, from the peh, from the inayim, and even meiraglayim. Masha'inkin, these mashka, the zayah, the lechasrucha, the re'i, even something that comes out through the same way that the re'i comes out, and it comes out clean, but lepel, it comes out derech of the piyat habas, so that doesn't have a din of mashke. So meilis le mistam v'le machshir. Halacha ches. Now we learned that oichlin mashkin bechlal can never become tor. Oichlin mashkin that became tummy can never become tor. The only mashkin that can become tor is only mayim. Mayim, when it comes mechuber to the mikveh, it's not really through tefillah, becomes mechuber to the mikveh, so that mayim, even though it was tummy, could become tor. That's din number one. Now we're also learning over here that when a person takes in water, or drinks other mashka, and then he throws up that mashka he regurgitates that mashka, so that mashka has still a din of the original mashka. So the mashal, if he took in mashka which was tamei, and then he threw up that mashka, so that mashka is still tamei. And if he took mayim that was tor, and he threw up that mayim, so that has a din of mashka. That has a din of a mashka, and it's tor dika mashka. Now, b'negei mayim, since mayim could become tor b'mikvah, so it's a chidush that even though he drank the water, and now l'chura, now he's being tovel in the mikvah with the water being inside of him, mayim which were tmeim inside of him, and now he was tovel. So now when he regurgitates that water, so that water is tor because it became tor in the mikvah. Even though the water didn't really touch the mikvah. Normally, l'chura, the water becomes tor in the mikvah, it becomes part of the mikvah. Over here, the water is in him. But nevertheless, we say that it's tor because mayim could become tor in the mikvah. Masha'inkin sh'ar mashkim that are tamei. If a person drank other mashkim and they were tamei, and then he was table in the mikvah, so then they won't become tor in the mikvah because lepel other mashkim can become tor in the mikvah. So there's two dinim over here. There's one din over here that mayim could become tor in the mikvah, and other mashkim cannot be tor in the mikvah, even if it comes out through the mouth. And then there's another din that lepel mashke that comes out through the mouth has the original din of mashke. Mashenkin, if it doesn't come out through the mouth or it becomes seruach, so then it loses its original din of mashke. That's the din that I said in halacha ches. Halacha ches. Hashoise sh'ar mashke. A person drinks other mashke, and v'yotzu, and they come out. They come out means through the mouth. Is harein mashkin kshoyu? They still remain the original din of the mashkin. She'en sh'ar hamashkin teirin beguf. Other mashkin doesn't become teirin beguf. In other words, even if you're tevel b'mikvah, it's not going to help, and they're not going to be tor beguf. That's this din. Ein shara mashkin teirin beguf. Other mashkin can't become tor beguf, even if you were tevel. Ketzit. Shasa mayim tmeim v'hikiyan. If a person drank mayim tmeim v'hikiyan, is areim tmeil. they remain tummy. The fact that they're now coming out of the body, it doesn't make it new water. It's not new water. It's the original water. The original water which were tummy, that's the water that's coming out. That's talking about if he wasn't table. But if in the middle he was table, that's one option. Or the water became saruach, and now is uikiyam. So mele it lost its shemayim. Or a third option is sheyotzu mulmata. They didn't go out through the mouth; it came out mulmata. In afal pisha leitavo is in all these cases are integrated. Is again a person drinks mayim tmei. So if the water comes out through the mouth and he wasn't table, so that mayim is tummy. If the water became saruach, or he was table, or it came out rather than came out through the mouth, it came out mumata, so then it's tahir. That's talking about mayim. Now shas sh'ar mashkim tmeim, esha'osh chal sh'ar echlun tmeim, is afal b'shetavel v'achar kachekiyim. Even though he was table in the middle, is tmeim. Lefi she'ena tehirim beguf. The fact that he was table, it didn't become Torah. It didn't become Torah beguf. In other words, while it was in the body, it didn't become Torah. I'm not sure what's like in tehirim beguf. In other words, it still remained the mayim tmeim. It still remained the oichel tamei, and the fact, and it came out, it's still tamei. Now nisruchu, if that oichel or mayim became nisruchu, eshiyotzu mumata, so that is harein tehirim. So again, so the difference between mayim and mashkim tmeim, other mashkim tmeim, echel tmeim, is only if he was tevel in the middle. So by mayim, if he was tevel in the middle, it'll help. That the mayim becomes toir, and even it comes out through their chapeh, and it's not nisrachu, it's toir. Mashenkin by oichel and mashkin tmeim, over there, if the tefillah is not going to help. Halacha tes. Kvar biyarnu shahazeya ein mashke. That sweat is not mashke. Afilu shasa mashkin tmeim v'hiziyah. So the churi say that the zeya is coming from the mashke tmeim, but that's why the zeya doesn't have a din of mashke. So therefore, zeyasa teira, the zeya is Torah. Aval haba b'mayim shuvim v'hiziyah. A person went into mayim shuvim, so he comes out and he's wet. So now lepel, when a person goes into mayim shuvim, he becomes a sheni l'tumah. When it comes to sheni l'tumah, so the water, the liquid, which is on his guf, after he comes out of the mikveh, that liquid is a din of liquid that's touching the sheni l'tumah, and it becomes a rishon l'tumah. Now this zeya is getting mixed into that liquid which is on his body, which is tummy. So mele, that zeya also becomes tummy. So that's zeyasa tmeya because it comes bottled and becomes part of the mashkim tmeim which is on his body, which he just came out of the mikveh. However, v'im nestapid min hamayim mashuvim, he came out of the mikveh and then he dried himself, and then v'achar kach iziyah, and then he started being miziyah, he started sweating. So that's zeyasa teira, because again, sweat is not something which is makabel tumah. But if the sweat gets mixed with mashkin tmeim, so memelis has a din of tumah. Halacha yud. Zeyas batim, or sichon ma'eres u'beires, there's a mitzvah of a wall, you know, having liquid coming out of it, it's a zeh of a house or of a bear, is all of these things ain't a mashka. They're not mashka. Vafilu ain't tmeim, even we're dealing with a house or a sichon order which is tamei, let's say you could have a house which has a nega in it, or you could have a house even that has a mess in it. So Mela, the house is tamei. But nevertheless, the Yossi Teira, the Zeya in the house is Torah, because that Zeya is not Mekabel Tumah. It's not something which is Mekabel Tumah. It doesn't have a din of a mashka, so it's not Mekabel Tumah. That's talking about Stama Zeya, the Zeya, natural Zeya, that you have a house, let's say, that has a certain moisture coming out of the walls, which there's no pool over there. It's not there's a pool of water, that pool of water is extending to the house. We're talking about a natural thing that the walls are sweating. Aval Zeyas HaMerchetz, but if you have a merchetz, you have a bathhouse, and in that bathhouse you have a bathtub or a large pool of water, and that water is hot, and therefore the vapor is coming out of the water is going on the walls, and therefore there's sweat on the walls. So that sweat is really the sweat of water. Zeyas HaMerchetz is Kamayim. And Memela in Hoysa Merchetz Tmeya, if the Merchetz is Tmeya, this Tumah, the water is Tamei, so then Zeyasa Tmeya, so the Zeya of this Merchetz is also Tamei. However, Vim Hoysa Teira, if the Zeya is Teira, now V'hichnus Ba'Peiris, now you put Peiris into the Merchetz, so Mela, those Peiris are going to become moist, there's going to be a moisture on the Peiris from the Pare, which is in the Merchetz, is Huchshu, because again, that din of the Zeya has a din of Mayim, Huchshu, Hichnisu L'Kelim, if you brought kalim into this market, is arayamayim shaleim kitlushin beratzon. Now there's another din that in order for mayim to be makshir, it has to be tolush from the karka beratzon. And those mayim which is in the karka, even if it's mayim which originally was a mayim shuvim, but mayim which is in the karka is not makshir. It's not makshir unless it was nitlash beratzon. While it's in the karka, it's not makshir. It has to be nitlash and it has to be nitlash beratzon. So over here we're saying if you brought kalim into this market, so the mayim shaleim, the mayim which are on these kalim, have a din of hukshir beratzon, and therefore that mayim which are on the kalim could be makshir. B'kitzur, the kuzat is that the zeya of a market has a din of mayim, and memele could have a din of mayim like being tomei, and it's makshir the peiros and it's matami the peiros, and also there's another din that when you bring kalim into the market, so then it has a din of hukshir beratzon, nitla beratzon, and therefore that zeya which is on this kalim could be makshir. Halacha Yudalef, habreicha shebabayis, and b'habayis mazia machmosa. So again, over here we're talking about, before we're talking about merchats, over here we're talking about psabreicha shebabayis, and l'pel the zeya in the bayis as a result of the breicha. Again, a pool of water is imhoisa habreicha tmeya, is zeyas kol habayis shemachmosa tmeya. The zeya of the bayis which comes as a result of the breicha is tamei. Halacha Yud Beis, shtei breichas babayis. You have two pools of water in a house. Achas tmeya v'achas teira. One is tamei dika water and one is teira dika water. Is a mizia karev l'tmeya, the zeya that comes on something that's near the tamei dika water is tamei. And karev l'teira, the zeya comes on something which is karev l'teira as a din of teira. And mechza l'mechza is tamei because we naman that they're mixing together. Now there's a chiddush over here that even though l'chura the zeya is spreading in the house, but nevertheless, we say that the zeya which is near the tummy is coming from the tummy, and the zeya which is near the Torah is coming from the Torah. Halacha Yud Gimel. Hamoyel kishemen. Hamoyel is the liquid that comes out of an olive before the actual oil comes out. And when you start squeezing an olive, so like black liquid starts coming out of the olive originally, and then eventually the oil actually comes out. So hamoyel has a din also of shemen, this liquid which comes out of the olive before the oil also has a din of oil, and that's din number one. The melis has a din of oil, which is mashkin. Then the Ram continues, mashkin hamenatfin misali zeisen v'anovim eni mashkin, and therefore v'lei mistam v'lei machshin achi yachnisim bekeli. We learned that in order for mashka to have a din of mashka, it's mashka that you want it to be mashka. So when you have oil that's coming out of, or even oil that's coming out of the zaysim, so you want it to come out. You want it to come out, so then you want that mashka. So then there's no mashka. Even if the mashka is just falling out on the floor, so notice it's in a basket. The basket is porous, has holes. So the mela, so it's coming out on the floor. So it's not, you're not really interested in the mashka. You're not really having anything from the mashka. So that's what he's saying. Mashka hamenatfim, which is dripping from the salization manovim in those baskets, you're not really gaining anything from that mashka. There's any mashka. That mashka doesn't have a din of a mashka, and therefore v'lei mistamen, it's not a kabel tuma. V'lei machshin, it's not machshin the kabel tuma. Achi yachnisim bekeli, unless you put it into a keli, you put that mashka into a keli, that keli is going to hold the mashka. So then you're interested in the mashka, and then it'll be sign machshin and sign mistam. Halacha yudalet hashoikel anovim bekaf miznaim. You're weighing grapes on a scale. Is hayayin shebekaf any mashka? That yayin which is on that scale, you're not interested in that yayin. That yayin has no interest to you, and therefore doesn't have a din of mashka. If you take that mashka and you put it into a keli, so then you have an interest, and then it's something you'll preserve. You'll have. Just like we spoke about the baskets, which are dripping yayin and shemen, which you have no use for it, so therefore you're not interested. So it doesn't have a din of mashke, so al derech zeh, this yayin, which is bekaf miznaim. Halacha tezvov, hadoires anov mishal truma bechavis. You're pushing, in other words, you have grapes and you're pushing it into a barrel. You're putting, you're not pressing the grapes here. You want to have the grapes in a barrel, so you're pushing them in. You're pushing them in to get as many grapes into the barrel as possible. Is aval pisha yayin sofal gabiyada, by pushing it in, it's becoming wet, the things are breaking, the grapes are breaking, and now there's wine dripping on your hands. Nevertheless, everything is tar, because again, you're not interested in the mashka. because you're interested in the grapes. Lepel, by since we are squeezing the grapes into the barrel, so the grapes are cracking, and there's mashka coming out, but you're not really interested in the mashka, and therefore it doesn't have a din mashka, and it's not mekabel tuma. Halacha tezayin. Mashke base mitbachayim sheba'azorah. The Rambam is speaking over here on a deraisidical level. On the bottom, at the end of the next halacha, the Rambam is going to say this is all midiraisa, not midrabon. Mashke base mitbachayim sheba'azorah. The mashke base mitbachayim, the place where they shechted the behemoths in the azorah. V'hu dam hakochim. So that's the dam of the kochim. That's where they shechted the kochim. And also v'hamayim shemishtamshim b'msham. The water that was used also there in the base of mitbachayim in the azorah. In the Azorah is Teherin Le'ilam. So the dam in the Azorah and al derech the mayim shemishtamshim b'msham are Teherin Le'ilam. Ve'ena mistamen v'lei machshin. So this dam and this mayim is not mekabel tumah, and it's also not machshir. The davar zeh halacha mipi HaKabbalah. That's halacha mipi HaKabbalah. That dam of kochim and al derech the mayim which are used there is not mekabel tumah, and it's also not machshir mekabel tumah. Lefichach, kol demei hazvachim, all the bloods of the zvachim eine mekabel tumah ve'ene machshir. Ve'heil v'dam hakochim eine machshir. So memele kochim shenishchetu ba'azorah lehuchshir b'dam hashchita. Normally, when a behemoth is geschochten, so the dam hashchita is machshir the entire behemoth to be mekabel tumah. So now the rest of the behemoth could be mekabel tumah. But since we're saying that the dam of the kochim are not machshir, so when you have kochim that was geschochten in the Azorah, so obviously it wasn't mekabel hechsher, because that dam of the Azorah is not machshir. Ve'ein l'psar hakochim hechsher, el b'mashke sheyipru al habasar chutz mi mashke. Fix it instead of b'mashke chutz mi mashke beis hamitbachayim. The mashke beis hamitbachayim is not machshir. You said before, not the dam and not the mayim. Masha'enkin if yipru al habasar something chutz mi mashke beis hamitbachayim, that could be machshir the basar to be mekabel tumah. Mel comes out of the halacha yud zayin. Paras kochim shehivira banor. So now you have a paras kochim which you're bringing to the Azorah, and you went through a nor and v'shachta, and then you went ahead and shechted it in the Azorah. B'mayim adayin mashkin tifreichala, and there's still mashke wet on this part, which comes not from the mashke of the base mitbachayim, but it's mashke that it got bachutz. So the din is a muksharis. So this part is muksharis because it still has the mayim which it got me bachutz. Lefichach, since it's muksher lekabel tumah, is lefichach in the tzas machat tmeya b'psara. If you're going to find a machat tmeya which is b'psara, so raya basar tamei, because the machat is tamei and it was metame the basar. So if the basar wasn't muksher, so then it wouldn't be mekabel tumah. Masha'inkin, since this basar is muksher with the mayim of that the mashka tifeichala from the mayim there was a vira benor, so the mele is mekabel tumah. V'chein im hoisa haparach suma michutz l'shalayim. If you have, over here we're talking about machat tmeya b'psara. Now this is clear. There's a machat tmeya, a machat which you recognize the machat. You know that it's tmeya and it's b'psara, so you know that machat was metame because it became mukshel l'kabel tumah. There could be a hechet timtzah where you don't know anything about the machat. Now the din is that a keli in Yerushalayim doesn't have a din of tumah. But any kelim, there were guys that any kelim that's outside Yerushalayim should have a din of tumah. Now if you find a keli, a machat inside the goof of the behemoth, the question is when did the behemoth swallow this machat? Or did it swallow the machat outside Yerushalayim and mele its tummy? Or did it swallow the machat inside Yerushalayim and mele its torah? Now if the behemoth was muzzled before it entered Yerushalayim, so obviously you know that machat was obviously went into the behemoth outside Yerushalayim. So mele the machat is tummy. That's what he's saying. The parah was muzzled from when it started being outside Yerushalayim until it got to the Azorah. Is aval pish eina machat yedu is arei basar tamei mipnei shenoga bekelim and imtzoyim michutz Yerushalayim. Because we're talking about it. No, since it was chsuma michutz Yerushalayim, so obviously this machat came into him before he was chsuma, which was outside Yerushalayim. So memela, so it comes out that it's tamei. So the basar is tamei. Bekitzer, since the basar was muksher through this water which was from the outside, which is adayin mashke tefeichala, so therefore it's considered tamei, either from a machat which you know is tamei, or from a machat which you nemon is tamei because it has a din tamei, because you know this machat was from Michutz Yerushalayim. Now nimtzas hamachat beperish It wasn't in the basar, it was in the parish, in the waist, in the tseya. So then a basar Torah. Aber benkach or benkach, either way, hayodayim teres. There's no messias of normally when a person touches something that's tamei, a rishon l'tumah, the yadayim becomes tamei. A rishon l'tumah makes the yadayim tmeis. Masha'in came in Beis Hamikdash. There's no messias of yadayim becoming tmeis. That's the din. Benkach or benkach, either way, hayodayim teres. She'ein tumas yadayim b'mikdash k'mei shebihan. There's no mitzias of Tumas Yadayim b'mikdash that Yadayim should become Tamei b'mikdash. And therefore, the Yadayim are going to be Teres, because even though he touched, let's say, the Machad doesn't have a din of an Avatuma, the Machad has a din of a Rishon L'Tumah. And Memela, so therefore, it can be Metame Yadayim. If it would have a din of an Avatuma, so then it would Metame the Adam, it wouldn't be a din of Tumas Yadayim. But it doesn't have a din of an Avatuma, it has a din of a Rishon L'Tumah. But Medvarim Amurim, what we're saying over here, that the shaila is whether the basar is tummy or not. No, since it wasn't mukshel lekabel tumah, so therefore it's not mekabel tumah. And if there was water on it from ibachutz, so then it is mukshel lekabel tumah. That's all lias habasar tummy b'nin teira. The whole deal that we had in halacha tezayin or the halacha yud zayin was about whether the basar it become tummy b'nin teira. Aval lehistami midivreim, as far as becoming tummy midrabanan, ein hakedesh tzarich hechsher. Bechlal it doesn't need hechsher. Whereas even Beferish didn't touch any mashka. Elachibas hakedesh machsheres habasar. The fact the chibas hakedesh causes that all kachim should become considered muksher, and therefore v'imnaga beitumah, if tumah touched into kachim, ben kala ben chamura, even if it was never muksher, is nifsula afal pishali huksher b'machsher k'mesha b'yan. So on one end we're saying that the mashke in the base mitbachayim is Torah and Memela, so therefore it's not Machshir. That's on a Minateretika level. Mashenkin on Midrabonatika level, even if there's no Mashke, there was Basa, there was no Mashka on it. Or there was something of Kodesh, that, in other words, that there was no Mashka on it, also would be Mukshir Lekabel Tuma, that's Chibas HaKedesh Machshir Ose. K'mei Shebiyan.